duties with the Sheriff's Office?
Canine handler for the Bloodhound, and I work regular patrol as well.
Are you assigned to a particular zone?
Yes, I work Zone 1, which is actually the area around here, the Sheriff's Office, out of State Road 16 out to 95 and US 1 up to 210.
And how long have you been a canine handler as part of your overall 15 years?
14 years.
Who is your canine partner?
Canine Inverness, Bloodhound.
And was that your partner back in August of 2015?
Yes, ma'am.
How long have you been working with Inverness?
Since she was 8 weeks old.
And how old is she now?
She will be 7 next week.
Is this your first, doesn't sound like it based on the timeline, first canine with St. John's?
No, ma'am. It's my third.
And is this your first Bloodhound?
No, ma'am. It's my third Bloodhound.
What type of tasks or what is the purpose of Canine Inverness?
She is classified as a man-trailing canine. She only trails so-called tracks, lost people, missing people, anybody that runs from us.
And what type of training does Canine Inverness and yourself have in order to serve in that capacity?
We have been certified with National Police Bloodhound Association. She has gone through several hours of training. At least we average about 700 to 800 hours a year in training.
And you mentioned the certification. Do you conduct, obviously a lot of hours, so is it ongoing training? Are there like trainings where you go off for a week at times?
Both. I do train when I'm on patrol. I usually have my zone partners go run and hide from me, and we kind of make it a game just to keep her motivated and up to date on her training. And we try to think of all different scenarios to set up, like leaving from a bank or a store.
And do you two train like as a team, as a
Yes,
partnership? Can you explain to the jurors, you mentioned the title and like how she tracks, but can you explain to them how that works, how she's trained?
So bloodhounds are actually, they're bred to hunt. You just have to train them what to hunt. And we train them when they're a puppy to hunt for people. And we give them a scent article, and they lock onto that scent, and they will track that scent. Everybody has their own human scent, and what she's actually tracking is the skin wraps that are coming off of your body.
And is she able to do that even if she doesn't have, like you mentioned, I think the scent article is, you know, something we may be familiar from television, a child goes missing and
Right.
have that scent article. Is there another way?
Correct. Yeah, if there's no scent article, we actually just go to the last place seen, and they're able to pick up the human scent from there. It'd be the freshest scent or the strongest scent at that time.
What are they actually picking up? Like
It's the skin wraps, like the dead skin coming off your body. Everybody you know, it sounds bad, but you're shedding skin constantly. So when you're sitting there, you got millions and millions of skin wraps sitting around you right now. So and it gives off a certain odor, and that's what she's tracking.
Okay. How do you know when you're on a track if Inverness has picked up a track or if she's just walking around?
So that's easy. If she's just walking around, she'll just be marking and stuff like that. It's funny, when I start her, I harness her where the last person's seen. She'll actually start turning the direction that person's already gone, and she's pulling before I even get the harness all the way on her. And then when she's on, she pulls very hard. She's very determined, and nothing distracts her.
Okay, so she's pulling you. You have her on lead, not off.
Right, always on lead.
Okay. And short lead, long lead, what is
20-foot lead.
And what is the terminology? I mean, do you use verbal terminology, or does she just know when she gets out?
I give her a command. After she's harnessed up, I give her a command that's hunt them up, and then she knows it's time to go.
Other than locating an actual person, like a successful find, you found someone hiding or a lost child, let me ask you this, when she does that, obviously other than you see that you found someone, does she give another alert or just takes you to the human?
If she's getting close to somebody, she pulls her tail's wagging. If we don't have a find at the end, she will circle. Usually will circle a few times and come back and jump on me. Sometimes her head will come up and she will just beg, saying that she does not have the scent any longer. and is not in the area.
Is she able to distinguish between a scent that is lost because of a car pickup? I think that's a term.
Yes, we've actually done training where my runner, my subject, actually gotten into a car and left. A lot of times she will just go to the area and just circle the area, keep circling the area where the car was parked at and unable to continue any type of track from that area.
Did you respond to the Marbella neighborhood back on August 27th, 2015 with Inverness to track a person?
Yes, ma'am.
And when you responded, do you remember where you were?
I believe I was probably close over to this area by the sheriff's office when I actually heard the call come out.
Do you, what did you know? What did you think you were responding to at that time?
If I recall, I just remember something about someone firing shots, unknown the specifics of it, and that's pretty much, when you hear that, everybody just kind of goes that way.
So you weren't necessarily dispatched, you just went there?
I just went there.
Okay. Are you the only canine on a shift, or?
At that time, I believe we had one other canine on the shift.
Do you recall what time you arrived at the location in Marbella?
If I recall correctly, it was probably right at 11 or before 11 o'clock.
And what was going on at that time as far as law enforcement activity?
When I pulled up on scene, there was already deputies inside clearing the house.
What information did you brief with those deputies and figure out what you're supposed to do, what the plan is?
Yes, ma'am. Once they came out of the house, they believed that the person was last seen in the backyard, and they've asked maybe we can try and do a canine track from there to determine his whereabouts.
Your Mayor Coach?
You bet.
Deputy Mayor, prior to coming to court, you recall preparing a presentation with maps to assist your testimony today? Okay. I'm going to show you what's been previously marked as State's I as a disc. Do you recognize that as the disc that you signed and dated?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And the maps that we used on there are accurate of the area we're going to be talking about today. Okay. State would move in State's I.
Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
No objection. Validly received as State's Exhibit 9.
Were you familiar with Marbella when you responded? Did you have to kind of pull that up and look?
I had to pull it up and look. Not a normal area I work.
And in the meantime, Deputy, if you need to use that window or step down and kind of take a minute, maybe go with your glasses there, take a minute and familiarize yourself with that map, and I'm going to ask you some questions. Do you recognize this as the general Marbella neighborhood area?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. If you could just kind of tell the jurors where you responded and then what you did with Inverness.
When I responded, after they cleared the house, I took Inverness to the backyard of the residence, to where the back patio was.
When you say the residence, just so the record's clear, you talking about the residence on Bellagio Drive?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
This one right here. So, and then I harnessed her in the backyard, gave her a command to work. And if I remember correctly, she immediately started trailing towards this little area. There's a little berm here. It's kind of like a hill, kind of grassy. You can't really see over the other side of it. It's kind of hard to see the houses on the other side until you get over. She immediately tracked over the berm. She came through these tree lines here, came to 648 Porter Rosa Circle. Whenever she came around this side of the house.
I've got another map here for you, closer up.
Thank
here.
you.
You're welcome.
She came around, she came through here, right here. Came around this side of the house, right to the driveway. She circled the driveway, but then again, she did come back around and circled the house again, but came right back to the driveway and circled a few more times. And at that time, she indicated pretty much there was no more scent trail in that location.
Okay. Were her behaviors on that day consistent with a scenario where it could have been a car that left the area?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, that's pretty much what she was indicating, but someone been picked up in a vehicle or left in a vehicle.
Did you attempt to, you can go ahead and have a seat. Did you attempt to sort of verify that, check it? Do you walk around more?
Yes,
or do you
ma'am.
just stop? How does that work?
After that, I kind of took her, kept her in harness, and I walked her a couple houses down this way, so she's able to pick it back up or indicate that the person's still in the area. She showed me negatives, is which her head just comes up and she just kind of doesn't want to commit to anything. Then I walked her a few houses down the other way, and she did the same behavior there. And at that time, I pretty much terminated the track.
Okay. No further questions?
Cross-examination, Mr. Schmidt.
Yes, sir. On August 27th of 2015, what article of clothing from J.R. Colley were you given to track?
I did not use, I used last place.
So you just went last person that went in the area?
The freshest scent or the strongest scent, yes, sir.
Do you know for sure that was Mr. Colley's son?
I cannot say that was pure to him.
Could have been 2 kids running through the yard?
It all depends on the time frame, whoever the last person was that was running through the yard, but usually she goes off the strongest scent, so, which could also be a pure scent too.
But you can't sit here today and say that was Mr.
No,
Colley's
sir, I
son?
cannot positively say.
I have nothing else, sir.
Deputy Director.
No, no.
Is she excused by the parties?
She is.
Yes.
Thank you, Deputy Director. You are excused.
Thank you.
Good day. State calling your next witness.
State would call Deputy Douglas Kowiski.
Deputy Kowiski, if you'll take the witness stand right here. You'll remain standing when you get there. I'll have the clerk administer the oath. Raise your right hand, please.
Do you solemnly swear affirm the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
You see it? It's done. You may inquire.
Thank you. Deputy, if you would, please introduce yourself to the jury, and if you would spell your last name for Madam Court Reporter.
My name is Deputy Douglas Michael Kowiski, and my last name is spelled Kowieski.
How are you employed?
I am employed with the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office as a deputy, school resource officer, and canine.
How long have you been with St. Johns County Sheriff's Office?
Going on 17 years.
Do you have prior law enforcement experience?
Yes, I did.
And where was that?
Orlando Police Department and Jacksonville Beach Police Department.
And the duties that you just described, school resource and K-9, were those your duties back in August of 2015?
Yes, they were.
Did you have an occasion to get involved in a search for an individual by the name of James Colley on that date?
Yes, I did.
Can you tell us where you were and what information you received?
At the time, I was at Switzerland Point Middle School, which is the school I was assigned to at the time. I happened to be leaving the school, it was right around 10:45 or somewhere around there, and I was on my way to, I think, another school or something. I was leaving to go somewhere else, and I heard, as I was leaving, I heard all the radio traffic about the incident, and I was just listening. I wasn't going anywhere near it, and while I was traveling eastbound on Greenbrier Road, which turns into County Road 210, I heard the dispatch come over the radio with the description of the vehicle, and they were talking about the last known address.
And what was the last known address that you received?
1189 Harrison Drive.
And what type of vehicle description did you have?
What I heard over the radio was a green Ford pickup with like a duck decal symbol in the back window.
And what did you do with that information?
What I did is I checked our master name index because they didn't say how recent this last known address was. And when I went to the master name index, I saw that it was like fairly recent, like within a month. So I passed the first entrance for Southampton subdivision where that address is located. So when I made it to the main one off of where the amenity center is, I just drove down Harrison Drive and I headed towards that address.
And what happened as you approached? And do you know approximately what time you approached?
It was probably close to around 11 o'clock, 10:55, 10:55-ish to 11, something like that.
Okay. And what did you see when you arrived?
Initially, I was looking at the mailboxes to try and find the address, and as I was looking at the mailboxes and I looked up, I saw a green pickup coming out of the driveway, and as it was backing up, it backed toward me with its rear towards the front of my car, green Ford pickup, and Once I saw the duck symbol in the back window, it matched the description to me.
And how were you responding at that time? Were you lights and sirens or just responding to the area without that?
I was just responding to the area, no lights and sirens. I was just going to go by and see if the truck was there.
And once you saw that truck exiting, backing out of the driveway, what did you do?
At that time, I threw on my lights. I did a felony stop. I saw 2 individuals in the truck, in the back window, and I didn't know who they were at the time. So I had them get out of the vehicle because it just unraveled really fast. I saw that there was a gentleman that had gray hair and another gentleman that had like sandy brown hair. So I didn't know who they were. I had them get out of the vehicle, and once they did, then I identified that they weren't the defendant.
And of the 2 individuals in the truck, do you remember who had the grayer hair? Was the older gentleman like driver versus passenger, do you recall?
Gray hair gentleman was the driver, and the sandy hair was the passenger.
And what was, you made contact with the driver?
Yes.
What was his demeanor when you made contact with him? Do you remember?
I mean, a little bit excited, panicked, what was going on. Just seemed a little bit flustered.
Did he say anything to you in response or relevant to what was going on?
He asked me what.
Let me see counsel side, but excuse me, sir. No, you may proceed.
Thank you. Deputy, without telling me what the gray-haired man said, you indicated he was panicked and flustered. I can't remember your words that you used. When he said something to you, was that immediately upon your contact? Was he still in that state of mind when he made that statement?
Yes, when he got out of the truck, that's how he was acting.
Okay, and that's when he made a statement to you?
Yes.
So I would still review my objection.
All right, that objection will be local pursuant to the rules of evidence.
Deputy, what did that gray-haired man say to you when you first made contact with him?
First he was like, what's going on? And I explained that we were looking for his son. He identified himself, and he made a statement that he had told James that he had got a call from James, and he said, you should have never gone over to Amanda's house.
All right, thank you. Did you search the home at 1189 Garrison for Mr. Colley, the defendant that obviously was your subject? After you identified these were not him, what
Correct.
did you do?
Well, at first I waited because there was other units coming to where I was. There was a couple of deputies that got there. Sergeant Hill got there, and then I believe it was Sergeant Hill had asked Mr. Colley Sr. if we could go in the house and make sure that James wasn't in there. And once they gave us permission, then we teamed up and just went in there just to clear the house.
And did you locate the suspect, the defendant who you were looking for at that time?
No, he was not in the house.
Did you make any observations while you were clearing the house that you noted of evidentiary value?
There was one bedroom on the going in. It was like on the left side of the house. That there was gun cases and some ammunition in the bedroom.
When you say that in the bedroom, is it stacked up in a corner? Is it, what is the condition of the?
There was like a handgun case. If I was facing the bed, it was like on the right-hand side. There was like a nightstand or a dresser there, and then there was a closet that had some gun cases in there and just ammunition.
On the floor?
Yes.
Your Honor, may I approach?
You know.
Deputy, I'd ask you to take a moment and look at your reports.
Your Honor, I object. It's improper refreshing recollection. You didn't say you didn't remember anything.
Well, she hasn't asked a question. So all she said was look at the report. So it depends on what she is.
I'm going to ask you to take a minute and look at the report about the statement you testified to earlier and see if this is refresh your recollection as to the exact statement you reported out in your report on that day.
In Your Honor, I'd object again. She just asked about refreshing recollection. He never said he didn't remember what was happening that day or what he put in his report.
She's not offering a statement currently, so we'll overrule the objection at this point.
Okay.
No.
And at the time you wrote that statement was back in August 27th, shortly after the incident, correct?
It was right after the incident.
Okay. Does that report refresh your recollection on the exact statement that you typed out in your report?
Yes.
Made by the gentleman, the elderly gentleman?
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell us now what the exact statement was that you heard when he was...
Objection, Your Honor. It's improper. He never said he didn't remember anything. It's improper bolstering.
I'll overrule the objection.
You can go ahead.
And just read the statement. The white male with gray hair was identified as James Colley Sr., who spontaneously stated that he had tried to tell his son, James Colley Jr., not to go over to Amanda's house.
Okay, thank you. And after, obviously, things calmed down, you did identify this elderly gentleman right here as James Colley Sr.
Yes.
After you cleared the home, the other deputies did not locate Mr. Colley. What happened as far as your involvement at that house?
Once we had cleared the house,
Yes, sir.
I was just put on a perimeter unit, and then shortly thereafter I was released. And then, this was later on in the afternoon, then I went to assist Deputy Merritt, because they were still doing canine tracks for, like, people were saying that they thought they saw him in a neighborhood or something.
Okay. Was that house on Garrison Drive, when the deputies backed out, crime scene tape was put up and that house was held secure, correct?
Yes, once we had cleared the house, we had backed out, and we basically secured the perimeter of the house off so nobody else could go in there, and then they started setting up the crime scene tape.
Okay, no further questions.
Cross-examination, Mr. Shoemaker.
Your Honor.
Is the deputy excused? Ms. Dunn?
Nothing else.
Is he excused?
Oh, yes, yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, you are excused.
Thank you, Your Honor.
State, you can call your next witness, please.
State would call crime scene technician Sean Volner.
If you remain standing, we'll administer the oath to you. Raise your right hand.
Do you solemnly swear and affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Thank you. You can take a seat. Ms. Dunn, you may inquire.
Thank you. Good afternoon, sir. If you would please introduce yourself to the jury and let them know how you are employed.
My name is Sean Volmar. I'm an employee at the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office.
And what are your duties with the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office?
Crime scene technician.
And how long have you been employed in that capacity?
About a little under 8 years.
And what are your, do you have any prior crime scene or law enforcement experience?
Yes, I do. I've actually volunteered at the Newport Ridge Police Department as well as the Pasco County Sheriff's Office.
What is your educational background?
I have a bachelor's in biology at the University of South Florida. I have a crime scene certificate through the St. Petersburg College and an associate's in arts and crime scene.
And what, it might be obvious to some, but what are your duties as a crime scene technician with the Sheriff's Office?
But to document, collect, and analyze physical evidence.
And what type of training, beyond the education you've already talked about, what kind of training do you have beyond that?
I have a certification through the International Association for Identification for crime scene investigator, as well as in my career taking numerous classes on some being crime scene photography and trajectory.
And were you working in this capacity back in August of 2015?
I was.
Were you notified of a crime scene where the Sheriff's Office needed your assistance on August 27th and then as a homicide?
Yes, I was.
And what time were you notified about that?
Approximately 11:30 that morning, by Supervisor Angela Hosford.
And what was the address that you were asked to respond to?
260 South Bellagio Drive.
Is that an address here in St. Johns County?
I believe so.
And when did you actually arrive and actually begin your processing of the scene?
At approximately 2:17 that afternoon.
What is the first thing that you do as a crime scene technician, and specifically in this case, when arriving at a scene such as this?
I generally get briefed by law enforcement on scene to get a gauge of exactly what I'm walking into.
And what type of scene was this? What type of home? Can you describe that?
It was a 6-bedroom, 3-bathroom, 2-story home. There was a total of 3 vehicles in the driveway and 1 in the garage. And observing when I got there, the garage door was open.
Did you conduct what is referred to as a walkthrough when you get on scene?
Yes, I did.
If you would take us through, what's the purpose of that and how your time processing the scene works? What do you do first and from that point on?
Generally, a crime scene walkthrough is beneficiary to kind of get a gauge of what you're walking into the scene, being able to document things via notes, to find out exactly what kind of happened, and to come up with a game plan so when it deals with going into the scene, I have a little bit of a gist of what I'm going to be doing.
After you conduct that walkthrough, what is generally and what was one of the first things you did as far as documenting the scene in this case?
Other than my notes, I would also document the scene via photography.
Did you assist in preparing a presentation for court using your crime scene photographs?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
May I approach?
You bet.
If you don't mind showing you a disc, K1 for the record. If you could take a look at that, let me know if you recognize it.
Yes, ma'am.
And what do you recognize that to be?
The disc that we ended up coming up with our PowerPoint presentation with my signature and date on it.
Okay. And those photographs contained in that presentation are your photographs from the crime scene at Bellagio in this case?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And now showing you states K2. If you take a look at that, let me know if you have seen Exhibit K2.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And is K2, what is K2?
It's a copy of what is on that disc.
And all the photographs, true and accurate photographs you took at the crime scene?
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, at this time, state with movement states K1 and K2.
Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
Being offered as a composite.
Yes, sir.
States K1 and K2 will be received in evidence. It states composite exhibit 10.
Permission to publish throughout this testimony? First, Mr. Walmart, if you would explain, what we're looking at here on this first slide.
Now, these are referred to as photo placards. When I start a scene, it's used to identify that particular scene, as well as getting grayscale, things of that nature for the camera.
Okay. I want to first ask you kind of what your observations were about the exterior of the scene and the house as you found it that day, and we'll use these photographs here. You can kind of explain in generalities, and I will, if you want me to flip through the photos, just let me know.
The general address, we started at the back side of the address, which based off of this address, it has a black gate surrounding the majority of the backyard and side yards of the residence. From the back side of the residence with this gate, there is also a gate which was open at the time when I arrived at the back or rear of the gated area.
Okay. And we're going to get to those photographs in just a second. The photographs A here, B, and C, those photographs at the front of 260 Bellagio, as you found it.
Yes, that is correct.
And photograph D, what is that?
This is the left side of the residence going towards the backyard. Again, the side yard.
Okay. Photograph E is the side yard there. You can see the patrol car in the back. Where is that positioned in relevance to the house?
There's a pathway that leads north and south, which is parallel to the back of the residence. That would be the back of the fenced-in area of the residence.
Photograph F for the record is depicting what?
Again, the side yard, gauging to the left would be that walking path I just previously mentioned, as well as the back portion of that gate for the backyard.
Photograph H here, and anytime you want to step down or use that pointer, you can. Is this that gate that you referred to?
Yes, ma'am. This would be the far north portion of that gate, looking towards the south. The path being immediately to your left, and the open gate, as I previously mentioned before.
While in this area of the house, did you notice any evidence, items of evidence in this general area?
Doing a cursory review of the pathway to the left, there was a live round, a 9mm round that I did find at the kind of the cusp of that pathway.
Okay. So photograph I depicts that little yellow placard. What is that?
Photograph 1, or the photo mark 1, I'm sorry, is the live round that I did find in that pathway.
Okay. So as you find evidence, do you use those placards to identify it as you move through the scene?
Yes, ma'am. Dealing with all of the evidence that we collect and notate, in scene, we use the photo placards to kind of discern in the scene to make it a little bit more apparent to people that are looking at the photos to discern one thing from another.
Photograph J, that's the round that you indicated was a 9mm that you located?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
You use the term live round. Can you explain to the jury what you mean by that?
Yes, ma'am. A live round is basically an unspent round, meaning you have cartridge casings, which is what the projectile is housed in, and then the projectile itself. Both of them together, an unfired round would be referred to as a live round.
And this next photograph is a close-up of that round prior to you placing it into that box for evidentiary purposes.
That is correct.
Okay, photograph G.
This would be towards the south end of that gate, looking to the north.
And as we're kind of on the back side of this house, did you observe anything damage-wise to the rear of the actual residence when you were walking around?
In the porch area, which we will allude to here in a couple of photos in the future, there were 2 sliding glass doors in that back porch area that were broken, and there was glass on the ground of that porch area.
Okay. Photograph K, are we now just working our way around the house?
Yes, ma'am. This would be the other side portion of the yard, looking to the north.
Photograph L.
Another photograph of the side yard, looking, I believe, to the west.
And M.
This would also be to the left would be the front driveway, and this would be a little to that side portion of the yard.
Here we are, photograph N. Is that the rear sliding glass doors you were referring to?
Yes, ma'am. This would be a photograph of that porch area in the backyard.
And did you notice any other items of evidence in this area as you approached the rear of the home?
Yes, ma'am, I did. There was a cartridge case, 9mm, towards the east. That small area there with the photo placard, which I've labeled as 2, is where that 9mm cartridge case was. I also observed a check with reddish-brown stains in that porch area, as well as the shattered glass, as I mentioned before, and a defect in that right portion of that northeast sliding glass door.
And first, photo placard 2. And what type of evidence was that you collected?
A 9mm cartridge case.
And that is a round that we refer to as a spent round, is that correct?
That is correct.
That is what it remains after a bullet has been fired that is ejected from the firearm.
Yes, ma'am.
And photograph Q, is that the glass doors that you're speaking about?
That is correct.
And I know we'll look at it again, but can you identify on here a bullet hole that you observed?
It would be towards this area here.
And was there an identifiable bullet hole on the other glass door?
Unfortunately, due to the fact of most of the glass being missing, I could not discern an area where there would be a bullet hole.
What information did you have about the, or what was the check that you located on the bag boards at that time?
It was addressed to Amanda Colley for, I believe, the check was made for Fanatics, I think was the issuee of the check.
Okay. All right, I'm going to move now inside the house. I'm showing you photograph S. What is that?
This is the front door of the residence.
And photograph T would be the inside now looking at the front doors.
Yes, I believe I discerned it as the front entryway of the residence.
Okay. Mr. Volmar, before we move into the inside, may I approach it?
You bet.
Okay. Located exhibit, what has been identified as states R for the record. If you could take a look at that for a minute, let me know if you recognize those exhibits.
Yes, ma'am.
And what are those exhibits?
It is the live round on the pathway, as well as the 9mm cartridge case that I collected from the backyard.
Okay. And other than the other agency markings that are on them, do they appear to be in the same or substantially the same condition as the last time you saw them?
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, this time state movement states R.
Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
That objection is going to be received as State's Exhibit 10. Hold on.
Sure. And permission to publish, Your Honor.
You bet. I want to just look at it, folks, and then pass it to the next person. You will have that and all the other exhibits in the jury room with you when you deliberate. If you can get the exhibit, please. Thank you.
Yes. All right. If you could tell the jury what your initial observations were as you enter the home, condition of the home, things like that.
Upon entering the home, I did observe a large portion of glass on the living room floor, as well as the furniture in the living room. I did observe as well 2 defects in the north wall of the living room. There is an upstairs, as I mentioned, which is previous in these photos. There was a 45mm caliber, I apologize, box for Smith & Wesson that was upstairs in a closet, as well as to the point of a damaged television that I also observed in the living room.
Okay. Moving through the photographs, if you would explain the vantage point of the view.
This was the previous photo, just looking to the right, which was a hallway which led to 3 guest bedrooms and a guest bathroom.
And then this photograph B.
This is turning to the right, and there would be a kitchen nook and a kitchen.
And obviously another photo, what are you attempting to take photographs of here?
Of the glass debris that was on the living room floor.
Is that the same with photograph X?
Yes, panning slightly to the left, that's showing the debris on the floor.
And photograph Y, this angle that you're taking this photograph from?
This is a photograph looking directly into the living room. The north wall I mentioned before with the defects is to your left. In front of that is the staircase which led to upstairs. And immediately after that is a small hallway which led to the master bedroom.
I'm going to show you photograph Z. If you would, point out what you're talking about as far as defects.
The 2 defects I observed in the north wall is here and here.
And photos AA and BB are photographs of working your way up the staircase, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
How many rooms were upstairs when you got up there?
A single bedroom and a single bathroom.
And photograph CC, what is that?
This is a direct look. The staircase is immediately to your right. There's a closet to your right, and then the bedroom itself is straight in front of you.
And photograph DD, did you locate anything of evidentiary value in that closet?
Yes, ma'am, I did. The top of the closet, located here, was the .45 caliber Smith & Wesson box I specified earlier.
And photograph EE is a close-up of that, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
And did you take that box into evidence on that date?
It was collected the next day.
Okay, did you take it during your time there at that house?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Any other tips, Judge?
You bet.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as states PP for identification. If you could take a look at that and packaging, and let me know if you recognize it.
Yes.
And what do you recommend it to be?
The Smith & Wesson box I collected from the scene.
And it appears to be in the same or substantially the same condition as the last time you saw it.
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, this time state would move in states P.
No objection. No objection. I would receive the states into the law.
And Technician Volmar, if you can, either utilizing the photographs or your report, the serial number that would have been associated with this firearms box, what was that?
I believe it would be this number in the letter system here.
If you could just read that into the record for me.
Yes, it's H as in Harold, A as in Abraham, B as in boy, 0718.
Okay. Your Honor, permission to just publish or show the jury?
You may.
And this is just an empty box. And did you document and photograph this upstairs room as well, depicted here in FF?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
And GG, that is another photograph of the upstairs room.
Yes, ma'am, we were walking in and basically coming backwards, photoing that wall.
Okay. And did you locate any gun safes in that room?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
Okay. And how many?
There were, I believe, the safe there to the left, and there was a gun cabinet in the corner.
Photograph HH, does that depict the gun cabinet?
Yes, ma'am, to the left side there at the top of the photograph, which is here.
II is just another photograph of that room, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
This is a photograph. Tell us what position or vantage point from this photograph.
This is downstairs, pretty much in the center of the living room, looking to the right. The kitchen, you can see some of the furniture in the living room, as well as a spare bedroom to the back corner there.
And the jurors have already seen a lot of these photographs, so I'm going to kind of skip through them. But KK and LL are photographs you took of the living room on that occasion, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Photograph MM has a television depicted in it. Did you look at that television and see if there was any damage to it?
Yes, ma'am, I did, and yes, there was.
What kind of damage do you recall?
I guess lack of a better term, it was deformations at the top portion, expanding from the left all the way to the right of the top of the television.
And in depicts the rear sliding glass doors. Those vertical blinds, were those as you found them on that occasion? And what I mean by that is it appears like they may have been sort of pulled back from the right side of the door.
Yes, that is how I found them on scene.
Okay, that's nothing you did, that's how they were moved, right?
That is correct.
00 on the leather couch there. It appears like it could be a firearm. Could you tell the jurors what that is, or is not?
It was a representation of a toy gun. It was a plastic gun.
And in PP and QQ, what are you taking photographs of?
There are photographs of the blinds which had fallen and were laying on the living room floor, as well as the glass that was surrounding the back portion of the couch in that living room.
And does RR and SS depict that glass as well?
Yes, ma'am, it does.
Skip over to U. What room, what area of the house is this?
This would also be in the living room. Looking to the left would be the staircase, which led upstairs. This would be that small hallway I mentioned previously that went into the master bedroom and bathroom.
Okay. Photographs BB and WW are photographs of that master bedroom area, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And XX, what are you photographing there?
There were clothes kind of on the floor and on the bed of that particular bedroom, as well as the television was severely damaged. So this photograph depicts that television.
YY is also the master bedroom, and ZZ is the entrance into the bathroom, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
Okay, I want to walk through the bathroom. If you would, before we kind of go through the pictures, tell the jurors when you went into that bathroom, what do you see, obvious items of evidence, and just generally what do you find in that bathroom?
When it comes to the bathroom, it actually expanded kind of right and left. To the left, there was a bathtub, a shower, and a kind of a cubby area where a toilet was. To the right was a sink, as well as a closet, like a walk-in closet. Initially, on the observations, when I got into that bathroom, there was a door jamb as you walk in, pretty much on the floor right in front of you. To the left, there was a 9mm Ruger pistol laying on the floor close to the bathroom. The bathtub, I apologize. And to the right, the closet door, the exterior portion of that closet door, there was a defect in the door. And then going inside of that particular closet, on the opposite side of that door, the interior of the door, there was also a defect. There was also a decedent, which I later was identified as Lindy Dobbins, was kind of crouched in the corner behind a dresser in that closet with a cell phone in her left hand, as well as there was a 9 West box, a shoebox that had a piece of defect or a projectile, I apologize, on the box itself.
Okay, and we will show photos of that shortly. Here, triple B photo, what is that item of evidence there?
This is pretty much standing in the center of the bathroom. Looking to your left was the Ruger 9mm pistol I mentioned that was laying on the bathroom floor just in front of the tub.
And is CCC a close-up of that Ruger 9mm?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
Did you collect that item of evidence while you were at the crime scene?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
And did you do anything else with that item of evidence as far as processing when you were at the crime scene?
Yes, the item was processed for DNA prior to packaging it in evidence.
And what do you mean when you say process for DNA? What did you do exactly?
We basically swabbed the item for DNA, which is a process using, I'd apply my PPE or personal protective equipment, and from that point things such as gloves and a mask. From there I would obtain a swab, which in theory is basically a plastic or wooden shaft with a cotton tip on the end of it. It would be sealed, which I would open. From that point I would drop one drop of distilled water, which is used to lubricate the cotton portion of the swab. That would be placed on the areas that I would look to swab, which on this example I swabbed the grip and handle and trigger of the firearm. From that point, once I swab those areas, that swab is put back into the original packaging, placed into a manila envelope, sealed and secured, and then when I leave the scene, it would be submitted into evidence.
Your Honor, may I approach? First, I'm going to show you an exhibit that's been marked as states N for identification. If you would take a minute and look at that exhibit, and if you need to.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you recognize states N?
I do.
What do you recognize that to be?
The Ruger 9mm pistol I collected from the scene.
And other than the other agency markings that have been placed on it, does it appear to be in the same or substantially the same condition as the last time you saw it?
Yes, ma'am.
And Your Honor, at this time, state removing states N.
Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
No objection. That will be received as States Exhibit 13.
Technician Volmar, come on. Firearm is obviously in this box here. Is this exactly what you packaged the firearm in on scene?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Your Honor, at this time, may I publish?
Okay.
Do you want me to have a deputy look at it, or?
It appears to be secured.
It is.
You can go and publish it.
Okay. I'm now going to ask you to look at what has been identified as states O for the record, and let me know if you recognize that envelope and its contents.
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Okay. And what do you recognize that to be?
The swab I collected of the grip handle and trigger of the firearm.
And other than, again, other agency markings, does it appear to be in the same or substantially the same condition as the last time you saw it?
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, at this time, state remove in states O.
Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
No objection. Will be received as States Exhibit 14.
I'm going to move sort of in the same general area and walk through some photographs of that corner of the bathroom. Photograph triple D and triple E. Is this as you saw the decedent Amanda Colley and photographed?
Yes, ma'am.
Photograph F, FF, and triple G as well is how you located Ms. Colley on that date.
That is correct.
Photograph triple H, what are you photographing there?
There's reddish brown stains above Mrs. Colley that I wanted to document.
And triple I, do you see any items of evidence in that photograph?
There was a cellular phone as well as a projectile that was by her right foot.
And again, we're going to go over this in a little more detail, but when you say projectile, what do you mean?
Yes, ma'am. Basically, again, as explained before, the live round has the projectile as well as the cartridge case combined into one unit. This would be the fired portion of the bullet, which is on the floor.
And is there anything other than obviously Ms. Colley of evidentiary value in this photograph?
Yes, ma'am. To her left side of her foot, there's a cartridge case, 9mm specifically.
Can you kind of point to that on the...
Yes. Here.
And in triple L, what are you documenting there?
There were also additional cartridge casings, which entailed 9mm as well as .45 caliber rounds. One here, 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 and here.
Photographs triple M and triple N. I'm going to go ahead and show triple O. What are you trying to do by documenting those photographs?
Those three photographs are representing the defects that I observed on the decedent.
Triple P, what is that?
Based off again in the master bathroom, if you're standing in front of the sink, this would be a banister to the left, which there was a set of keys and a cellular phone.
And triple Q is obviously the vanity area there.
This would be the sink if you were referring to that previous picture to that right side.
And then triple R, what do you see in this photograph that you're documenting?
This would be the entrance into the bedroom, coming into the bathroom. This would be the door jamb to the closet that I observed there on the floor.
Okay. So when you said door jamb, right here, the little metal piece?
The metal stop for when you shut a door is holding the door in place.
And triple S, is that entryway into the closet, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
Triple T, what are you documenting here?
Looking at the left side of the door, this area here, there was damage observed to that closet door, which I wanted to document.
And is triple U another vantage point or a close-up of that damage?
This is standing inside of the closet looking to the opposite side and seeing that additional damage. That's the same damage as I specified that last photograph.
And triple B?
Again, the same photograph, it's just panning up a little bit higher versus the lower pan.
And triple W?
This would again be standing in the master bathroom looking into the closet. This would be the exterior portion of the door. I wanted to document a large defect in the door, which is here.
And you use the word defect a lot. So what do you, when you use that word, what are you using that word for?
Any type of instance where there's either a hole or some type of impression in the actual object that I'm referring to.
Okay. So not just a potential bullet hole, but any sort of damage or?
That is correct.
Any hole, I see. And triple Y is just a more skinned up photograph of that door, and what are you documenting here?
This would be the defect I mentioned previously that I observed in the exterior portion of the door, which would be here.
We're going to go into the closet. Triple Z is a head-on shot looking from the front of the closet towards the back. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And there's you mentioned earlier, and we're going to show other photos of it later, a 9 West box. Can you point out to the jurors where that is in this
Yes.
presentation?
Located here.
And we're now on quadruple A. This is a photograph of what, sir?
This would be the interior portion of that closet door. This would be the defect that was on the interior portion, as I mentioned before.
Okay. And quadruple B, is that closer? You're moving a little bit further into the closet there, is that correct?
Yes. The dresser to your right is the, as I mentioned before, Lindy Dobbins was hiding behind, and the 9 West box, as I mentioned previously, which again is here.
Right where that arrow is pointing, right? You see that? Right there. Obviously here, what are you documenting?
I'm documenting the decedent specifically in the position she's in and just overall just the condition of that particular portion of the scene.
And quadruple D, what is that?
Excuse me, additional photographs of the condition as well of the decedent and the scene itself.
Quadruple E,
This would be the cell phone I referred to earlier that was in Lindy's left hand.
move back out here into the living room briefly. Quadruple F. You've got a photo placard here now, so what are you identifying in that photo placard?
As well as the glass debris, I did end up discovering there was a piece of projectile located where number 4 is in the living room on the floor.
And that's depicted there in quadruple G?
That is correct.
Okay. I want to go into the closet, or excuse me, the bathroom again and focus on the area where Ms. Colley was located. As you can see, there's a number of placards here. You set those at each item of evidence that you see at that time?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'm going to go through, and I think it's quadruple I. Those were the 4 items of evidence you notated earlier, is that correct?
Yes, with an additional cartridge case to the back of the toilet.
Okay, so now you've seen 5, so you put down 5 different placards.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I want to start with photo placard 5. What was that that you ultimately collected in this case?
It was a 45mm cartridge case.
And 6?
A 9mm cartridge case.
And case again is not a live round, not a projectile or bullet, it's the casing, which is the ejected portion from the firearm. Sorry.
Yes, ma'am, that is correct.
And what about number 7?
Number 7 was a 45mm cartridge case.
And number 8?
8 as well, 45mm cartridge case.
And number 9?
As well, a 45mm cartridge case.
And moving over to the one by the trash can, number 10, do you recall what that was?
It was a 9mm cartridge case.
Sort of moving over, projectile, or excuse me, placard 12 was the projectile you noted earlier, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So this time, with Ms. Colley's body still there at the scene, this is what you've identified in and around her body.
Yes, ma'am, that is correct.
And if we could take this time right now to kind of explain how does it work as far as your processing and when the bodies are removed, how does that work?
Generally, when it comes to the scene itself and involving the decedent, we want to process the scene to the point of being able to remove the body. And then from that point, once that process is up to that, we would call the medical examiner, which would send an investigator out to assess the decedent. We would look for evidence on the decedent before they were actually taken or removed from the scene.
Okay. So you don't really look at, touch, manipulate the body until the medical examiner's investigator is present?
That is correct.
And at that time, if that is necessary, then you could do that when they are present?
Yes, ma'am.
And obviously, quadruple L is the 9mm Ruger that we just talked about and placed into evidence. I'm going to move into the closet. It looks here in quadruple N that things have been sort of cleaned up a bit. If you could explain that.
When we initially document the scene, we document it as we refer to as in situ, meaning we don't move anything or manipulate anything. So from that point, we would do our documentation. If we saw something or observed something, once it was documented and notated, we would collect it. From that, we would go a little bit farther and start searching. If something is found after that search, we would stop and kind of back up and start our documentation process again, using notes, sketches, photographs. And from this instance, we ended up doing a little bit of searching and discovering something after we started searching.
Okay, what is that, what you discovered?
Photo marker 19 is a projectile, which is the spent portion that's fired from the gun, which was on the floor.
It's photo marker, photo quadruple N, photo placard 19. That is a close-up of what we just saw relationally in the closet.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there anything else you noted about that area?
Yes, there's a defect in the carpet, which is here, and the projectile itself, which is here.
And quadruple O is that projectile as you collected it and documented it.
That is correct.
And here now, quadruple P, the 911 box seems to be in a different area. If you just talk about that.
Once the actual, as I mentioned before, the area is searched, this was kind of brought separately and examined, which from that point after examination, a piece of carpet and a piece of projectile were observed on the outside of the box.
And if you could point to in quadruple Q what you're referring to.
The carpet piece is here, the piece of projectile is here.
Can you mark that here with photo placard 21 in quadruple R? Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, that is.
And that red circle, is that outlining a piece of projectile that you're referring to?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
Okay. At some point, like we were just speaking of, the bodies of Amanda Colley and Lindy Dobbins were removed from the scene later in the day on August 27th.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
After Lindy Dobbins was removed, did you continue to look in the area of the closet for any additional evidence?
Yes.
And you've got two photo placards here now, and obviously Ms. Dobbins is not, that is the same area where Ms. Dobbins was, correct?
Yes, this would be the dresser we were referring to, and she would have been laying here. These were two additional 9mm cartridge cases that were found on the floor after we began searching.
So 23 and 24 were 9mm cases.
Yes, ma'am.
When you, along with the medical examiner, went to remove Lindy Dobbins from the scene and prior to transport, did you locate any other items of evidence on Ms. Dobbins?
Yes, ma'am, I did. As I mentioned previously, once the medical examiner arrives, we would basically have the body in an area where we could examine the body, and from that point see if there's any other additional evidence on the bodies themselves, which we ended up doing.
I want to ask you what you located in quadruple T, the two images here.
A projectile was actually observed on her left shoulder.
And it was just like that resting there as you moved the body?
Yes, ma'am.
You collected that item as well?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
Okay, moving back out into the house again, what area of the house is this and what did you locate at photo marker 20?
This would be the front entryway, so as you're walking into the front door, to your left would be the front doors. Basically, there were two small pieces of projectile that were observed on that entryway floor.
Okay, and did you, this quadruple B is a close-up of one of those projectile pieces, correct?
That is correct.
And the same with quadruple W?
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, may I approach?
You may.
Technician Volmar, I'm going to show you what's been previously marked as states L for identification. Take a look at this board. I know we've gone over a lot of evidence, so just take a look at that and let me know what evidence that is that we've spoken about.
Yes, ma'am.
What do you recognize? Multiple pieces of evidence on this board. What does photo board or board L contain?
All of the projectiles and cartridge cases that were located around Amanda's person.
And other, again, than the agency markings that are on these items, do they appear to be in the same or substantially the same condition as the last time you saw them?
Yes, ma'am.
This time state removed in states L.
Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
Received in states 15.
Permission to just show the jury, Judge.
Okay.
And just so we're clear, crime scene technician Bulmer, this is everything that was collected in and around the body of Amanda Colley.
Yes, ma'am.
And these little white boxes, what's the purpose of that? Is that how you collect firearms types of evidence?
Normally, when it comes to that particular type of evidence, it's very fragile, so we want to collect it in a medium that's going to preserve that fragileness, I guess you could say. So they're put in boxes such as that to protect them.
Okay. And then obviously after that, they're placed in these manila envelopes here?
That is correct.
May I approach again, Judge?
Sure, go ahead.
I'm going to now show you states M for identification. Similar board with multiple items of evidence. If you would just take a look at that, let me know what evidence this is.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And what items of evidence is on Exhibit M?
Those were the projectiles and the cartridge cases that were around Lindy Dobbins' person.
And other than other agency markings, are they in the same or substantially the same condition as the last time you saw them?
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, this time state removed in states N.
Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
That will be received at states 16.
And similarly, you package them in the white boxes and the vanilla envelopes.
That is correct.
And I think this one up here, top right, this is the one that contains, you collected the carpeting as well. That was on the 9 West box, is that right?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
So not just the projectile, but you took the whole carpeting and the projectile.
Yes, ma'am.
May I publish? I'm going to move outside of the Bellagio residence at 260 real quick and ask you what is depicted in the quadruple X photograph here.
A pair of sandals I was asked to document at 253 South Bellagio Drive.
Okay. And they're depicted there in quadruple Y, a close-up of them?
That is correct.
Your processing of the crime scene, did that end on August 27th or continue over multiple days?
Based off the time of day, we ceased processing that particular day and secured the scene to come back the next day to process and finish the scene itself.
Do you remember approximately what time you ended on the 27th?
I believe it was around 10:47 that night.
Okay. And when you say secure the scene, what exactly do you do?
Basically, the scene itself has obviously windows and doors. Any type of opening into the residence would be secured with evidence tape and making sure that obviously everything is sealed. From that point, once the actual residence is sealed, there's a deputy that stays guard basically until we get back the next day.
Okay. And the next day you document it again with the placard, agency, case number, your name, things like that?
Correct.
On the next day, both Amanda Colley and Lindy Dobbins have been removed from the scene, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Did you do additional processing and collection of evidence in and around where Amanda Colley had been found near the toilet area?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
I'm going to
everybody in the jury okay with me going for a while? Anybody need work? Everybody good? Good.
Photograph quadruple Z. What are you identifying there? What is located after Amanda Colley's body is removed?
There were 2 additional projectiles, which is again, as specified, the fired portion of the bullet, as well as a cartridge case, and there was also a defect in the wall.
Okay. And we are into quintuplet. Quintuple A here. You've got placards 26, 27, and 28. Can you tell us what that is?
Yes. 26 was a projectile, 27 was a projectile, 28 was a 9mm cartridge case.
Okay. And back out actually real quick at that. There's some numbers on the wall there. What does that depict?
29 was referred to as a defect that was observed in that area.
Okay. And there's that little arrow. Does that mean anything necessarily? Is the 29 and then the up arrow, what does that indicate?
That's for orientation purposes, so when I document the scene, people can get a gist of what the orientation is about.
Okay, so it's just indicating this is the right way for the photo?
Correct.
Okay. Did you have an opportunity to look behind that defect, attempt to locate any items of evidence?
The hole was cut in that area, and unfortunately, a projectile was not found.
You did attempt to look behind the drywall, so to speak, and look in that area?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
Okay, and this is sort of right behind that area. What is 27 and 30?
27 was a projectile we identified from previous. 30 was not identified until now because the toilet plunger was in that area, and once that plunger was removed, that projectile was observed.
Okay, so that's a projectile as well?
Yes, ma'am.
And here now we see the yellow sort of tape measure looking thing in the photograph. What are you doing there?
It's referred to as road mapping. It's something that you document using for the blood stains, for patterns, things of that nature.
And for the record, that was quintuple C. Quintuple D. Similar things, you're outlining where you see potential blood spatter, is that correct?
That's correct.
Quintuple E, kind of tell us where this is, since it's sort of a little bit of zoomed in there. 39, photo marker 39, where's that?
This would be basically on location. If you're looking immediately up, that would be where the toilet is. There was a bath mat that was in front of the toilet. When we lifted that up, we ended up finding an additional 45mm cartridge case, or 45 caliber, I apologize.
And so all of the evidence that we just went through with Amanda still located there, and then all of this evidence was the evidence you were referring to that was on the board in and around Amanda Colley?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
And I want to move into the closet again. On the second day, you're doing more processing. What is located at photo placard 31 on quintuple F?
Once we were able to move some of the clothing around where Lindy Dobbins was resting, there was a set of teeth that was observed on the floor of that closet.
You collected that item of evidence?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
May I approach, Judge?
You bet.
Technician Volmar, I'm showing you what's been previously marked as State's Q for his application. You can take a look at that. Let me know if you recognize it.
Yes, ma'am, I did.
And what do you recognize it to be?
The set of teeth that I ended up collecting from that closet.
Okay. And other than being prepared for court here today, is this the substantially the same or the same condition as the last time we saw?
Yes, ma'am.
You're at this time to take removing State's Q.
I'll object.
No, you're not.
It's going to be received as state secret 17.
May I publish, Judge?
You bet.
Still kind of remaining in this closet area, you documented the exterior of the closet door there. What are you doing in quintuple G?
As mentioned previously, this is the exterior portion of that closet door. 32 is referred to the defect I mentioned previous. 33 was an area of brown stain that I documented as well. And 34, as previously mentioned, that larger defect I mentioned in the door as well.
And that close-up inset of 32 is the defect you referred to?
Yes, ma'am.
That inset is just a close-up, 34. And you did the same on the reverse side, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
H and 32A, it's the inside of the closet door defect, correct?
That is correct.
Technician Bullhorn, did you do any sort of trajectory work in this area in the closet?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
Okay. What did that tell you after you, what did you do? Explain that to the jurors.
Using a tripod as an individual from the outside exterior in the middle of the bathroom, I did what we refer to as line trajectory. I used a line and basically passed the line to that initial defect on the exterior portion of the door, and from that point came back in here and did another line trajectory, and it showed to be very similar in that area where we observed the defect in the carpet of that closet.
Okay, I want to step back now to the living room area. We mentioned earlier on in the presentation the defects you noted through the initial walkthrough of the house. What do you have here, and tell the jurors what you did with this evidence?
These were the two defects I previously mentioned on the living room on the north wall. The two areas are being measured here, documentation on how far they are from the floor.
And did you number them as well with item evidence numbers?
I did. 36 would be this unit here, or this defect, and 37 would be this one here.
For this inset photos, is that a fair representation of what you just pointed out?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
And so what did you do after you documented them and photographed? What does this picture show, obviously?
As previously mentioned with photo marker 29, I attempted to recover the two projectiles and was able to successfully recover both projectiles from the wall.
Okay. And can you talk just about, you had the 36 and 37, so first tell us which line 36A is and what you were able to do with that piece of evidence.
This would be labeled as 36, so after going inside of the wall and taking a photograph of the projectile, I was able to recover from that wall and labeling it as 36A.
And that projectile is located in what? What are we looking at there, so the jurors understand?
It's basically one of the studs of the wall, so if you're looking at the drywall, immediately behind that would be the framework, or the wooden framework of the home itself.
And you were able to remove that one from that area?
Yes, ma'am, I was.
And what about 37? That inset photo shows 37A. Tell the jurors about that piece of evidence.
37 was located in this area here, and I was able, again, to cut out that area and take a photograph of the inside, which I labeled as 37A. That particular projectile was pretty embedded into that piece of wood, so the wood itself surrounding the projectile was removed from collection.
So you decided, or made the decision not to attempt to extract it any further, and you just cut the literal wood out of the house?
Correct. Basically, what you talked about before, being that evidence is very fragile, I didn't want to use anything to manipulate that projectile. So instead of trying to remove it, I just took the wood around it.
And the next photograph is what?
This is specifically the projectile of 36A after it was removed from that piece of wood.
And then the next photograph, quintuple O.
This is a large piece of the wood which is surrounded by the projectile.
This is 37A, the wood that you cut out.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
May I approach the judge?
You bet.
Technician Volmar, I'm showing you what's marked as states S for identification. Yes. S. If you would take a look at that, let me know if you recognize it, and if you do, what items of evidence this is.
Yes, ma'am.
And what items of evidence do you recognize on this board?
These were the projectiles and pieces of projectiles that I collected from the living room.
Okay. So does it contain both 36 and 37 we're referring to, and the other projectiles and pieces that were on the living room floor?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And now did any other agency markings, they appear to be in the same or substantially the same condition as the last time you saw?
Yes, ma'am.
Here at this time, state moved in states S.
Any objection?
No objection.
That item will be received as states 18.
Permission to show the jury, Judge?
You bet.
Technician Volmar, we've been talking a lot about the various ammunition, firearms types evidence. After you've collected it and entered it into evidence, where does that evidence go? Where do you do further processing on that evidence?
Depending on the evidence itself, in the example of firearms, projectiles, cartridge casings, those would be sent out to the Florida Department of Law Enforcement for analysis.
Okay. And just to believe a few photos now of those back doors, which you've already kind of described here. Quintuple M, it appears now you're on second day, you've put up this measuring tape, so to speak, in that area, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
And the inset 38, what are you taking a photograph there of?
It would be the defect that I observed or the damage that I observed to the blinds of that living room sliding glass door.
In a quintuple N, you can see a 38 and now a 38A. What is 38A?
It is a defect I observed initially getting to the scene from the exterior in that sliding glass northeast door.
So 38 is just that you're literally documenting the blinds, and then 38A is the bullet hole in the box.
Yes, ma'am.
And that inset is a close-up of that bullet hole, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
One moment, Your Honor, I may be done. No further questions, Judge.
Mr. Shoemaker, do you need much time to process?
It'll be very quick, Your Honor.
Okay, go ahead.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
I wanted to concentrate on a couple areas here. You stated that you did a trajectory in the closet from the outside, going through to see the angle and to, I guess, find out if the defect in the carpet was from the defect in the hole, in the door. Is that correct?
That's correct. It's just an approximation of where the bullet might have been or gone.
And I don't have the one up before in the living room before you did the cut out the drywall. But did you do a trajectory from the defects in the living room?
Yes, sir, I did.
All right. And were you able to make a determination as to approximately where the gunshots would have come from?
Looking at both defects and doing the trajectory line, like I mentioned before, it did look like it was coming from the area around the sliding glass doors.
So you pointed out one defect that looked like a bullet hole that was within the sliding glass door, right?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Right. And did you look and see, as far as a trajectory, where they would have been coming from outside into the backyard?
No, sir, I did not.
You didn't go that far?
No, sir.
Did you even, I guess, estimate visually when you looked out to see where approximately the gunshots would have come from?
No, sir.
I don't have anything much.
Any redirect examination?
No, Your Honor.
Is Mr. Bowler excused?
I'm going to keep him under.
Subject to recall.
Yes.
You're subject to recall. Still understand?
Yes, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's almost 4:30. I told you to break at 4:30. Rather than starting a new witness at this point, we'll go ahead and break for the day. So let me give you those same instructions that I've been giving you all along. Don't discuss the case with anybody. Don't do any research of any type. As you probably noticed, there was some media attention to this case. So please do not read, listen to, review any media coverage of the case overnight. I would ask that you be back tomorrow at 8:45 in the jury lounge. And we'll get started just a little bit earlier. As soon as I have everybody together, we'll get you up here and we'll continue on before we left off this afternoon. If you will leave your notes and notepads in that envelope, they will be secured overnight. And they'll be in those seats when you get back in the morning. And with that, I wish everybody a good evening. See you all in the morning. Everybody else,